You're listening to the 212 Roundtable Podcast. You can find us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Google Play, and Google Podcasts, as well as Apple Podcasts. Be sure to leave a review and subscribe. You can also find the Brew Club at 212.beer. That's the number 2, the word 12.beer. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram by searching 212 Brew Club. Now on to the show.
Back in the 60s.
In Chicago?
Yes, the Daily News, Tribune, Sun-Times, and The American.
The American, oh.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with any of those, are you?
No.
Sometimes. Is anybody from, the other two.
Sometimes the Tribune, but
what
the
about
American,
the Quigley Talon?
The American,
about that one?
That's where Mike Royko started. Did you ever read any of this stuff at all?
Sorry, that's my wife turning on the hose.
Or turning it off.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember.
You don't know Mike Royko?
No, this isn't. I mean,
I do.
It sounds familiar.
I only know Mike Royko because he actually did a story on my cousin.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
My cousin had gotten. He was big into, like, in the 80s. He was doing like the graffiti art. They would call it art. Other people would call it, tagging
graffiti
and stuff. But they were doing like
I'm calling it art.
Trains and like all these big murals and stuff on pieces. And he had gotten arrested and put in jail. Yeah. And Royko did an article on him.
Yeah, you know what? Royko does sound familiar.
Yeah. So that that's like how anytime somebody brings up Mike Royko, I'm like,
yep. Got a family connection to it.
That's cool. That's really he was so much of an a-hole that
that's true
in his writings and stuff like that, and he just picked a variance of topics that he could discuss, not knowing anything about one of them, but and that's how he would parlay his whole column, but then he'd come out in the truth in the last 2 paragraphs and stuff like that. And he was a straight up guy. I mean, he was a drinker and shit like that, but he was
straightforward.
He was
straight shooter.
Yeah, you guys should read. In fact, I still have the book Boss that he wrote about Mayor Daley.
Oh, that sounds like a good one.
Richard.
Yeah,
the first guy, not the son, and stuff like that. And in fact, years ago, my brother-in-law knew that I liked him and stuff like that, and stood in line for I don't know how long to get an autographed book.
That's cool.
So I think Royko was one of those guys that would go down to the Billy Goat.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Was hanging, like, because all the writers from the Tribune, that's where they hung out.
Oh, that was their spot. Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, that's what they would do.
What do you have about... Are you even going this whole time?
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. Oh. So now that I said, what do you have about Schlitz? And
Schlitz. 1967. I was X amount years old. My math sucks. Okay.
Math. Who needs it?
And the Cubs just got a new manager, Leo DeRozier, formerly of the Mets and stuff like... No, that was Casey Stengel, excuse me. But his long history... And he says, for sure, his first spring training, he says, this is not an 8th place ball club. This is when there were 10 teams in 2 divisions. And he says, sure enough, they weren't in 8th place. They went into 10th place at the end of the year. But getting along, he was doing advertisements and stuff like that. One of the first big-time managers and stuff. And then they were talking about Schlitz. And he have 2 sports writers with him and stuff like that. And his big thing at the end of the commercial is, hey, fellas, how about another Schlitz?
I'm going to cheers to that.
Rumor goes that it took him about 100 takes because he kept on saying, how about another Schlitz? How about another Schitz? How about another Schatz?
It's pronounced Schlitz. And right off the bat, we're going straight into this. To be fair, I gave you guys samples of beers before we started. I gave you samples of my New England IPA, and Brandon, I gave you a sample also of the cinnamon stout. Right off the bat, Schlitz is pretty tasty, right? Like it's. So to give everybody an overview real quick, we are talking about what I like to call the old man beers, or where it all started, because I remember trying my first beer, which I almost got today, was a old style, which I did get, old style, but MGD. I had a warm MGD with Kevin and my good friend John, Kevin Goggin, who's been on the show, and it was warm, and it was disgusting, I almost grabbed it for that, but Jeff and I and you, Brandon, we three of us have talked separately about beers that we had drank first, as far as like, what was your first experience for beer? So that's what we're talking about today. And Jeff brought up, by the way, Jeff is here. Jeff is my neighbor. Jeff is my neighbor.
I'm still here, yeah.
I know, yeah, you're still here.
Haven't moved.
Nobody knows that, though. That's who was telling the story. Jeff was telling the story in the beginning. Jeff is my neighbor, and Jeff has become my brew partner now that Brandon has child, and getting ready for child. You're not knocked out, Brandon. You will still always be invited, and I did invite you, but I figured you had something going on anyways with child. But Jeff has become my assistant brewer, and Jeff was also there, a part of one of the original conversations that we decided maybe we should do a podcast. You came by for a brew day.
I think that's when we did the cereal beers?
I think so. And we said it would be cool if we did a podcast, and Jeff was there, and we talked about it, and I said, well, you have to be a guest. And the best part is that here we are on our 10th episode. Jeff's here. Jeff, you made it. You survived.
I'm glad I survived the garage episode.
Yeah. We made it here, and we thought, what would be better than starting at the beginning on our mini, as you called it, our mini anniversary. We made it 10 episodes, Brandon. We did it.
That's crazy. Like, I don't...
It doesn't feel like... It kind of feels longer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just because we have it spread out so much, I feel like that's why it seems a little longer. And then we've also been doing how many test runs since November of last year? Like,
and we're here at my house, which is where we started, so it's kind of cool. But
it was very nice being in your garage for the first time, being observer of how Tony goes about doing his brewing techniques and things like that, and I'm learning a little bit. I think I've been out there 3-4 times now.
Yeah, I think that's
stuff
right.
Like that. After the first or second time, the garage is open and things like that, and there's heat, and cars going by in the alley, and Tony saying, "It's not a meth lab. It's not a meth lab."
It's true. It's not a meth lab.
So I kind of learned it was very, very educational and interesting.
Yeah, I appreciate I appreciate the questions that you ask.
Great. Why do you do simple things? Mm-hmm. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? And,
that was kind of the reason why we wanted to do the podcast too. We haven't really we've somewhat touched on home brewing. I mean, that's kind of the underlying tone of the podcast, but the questions that you ask are pretty much the same questions that Ron still asks in our club, and it's fun. It's fun to do it. I like having the questions asked, and you're someone, Jeff, that likes trying different beers as well. I mean,
you never know what's going to float your boat.
Exactly. You've got certain beers that you like, and you have been a sampler, a taste tester of all the beers that I have brewed since I've lived here. I'm on your almost.
It's Tony's nice way of saying a guinea pig.
Yeah, you're my guinea pig, basically.
I haven't exploded.
Not yet. Hey, I gotta win.
Yeah, I put 15 pounds on since I retired, so I kind of exploded. It might be that.
Blame Tony.
Blame me and my beer. But so Jeff brought some beers. Jeff and I were discussing as we were taking down my gazebo a couple weeks ago what beers would be good, and one we couldn't get, but one that we did get was Schlitz. You got some Schlitz.
Yes.
You got the Schlitz. You're going to have the Schlitz after this episode, I think, once we're done drinking this. Is it shits? No?
No.
Poop jokes? No fart jokes? No? Not going blue on the 10th episode?
No.
Okay. But honestly, Schlitz, it's pretty tasty. And maybe it's because I've been on a lager kick lately, but if I was sitting around and I had a whole bunch of Schlitz lying around with me.
The weather we've had today, like this 80-degree weather, this is good beer.
It's humid, yeah. This is refreshing. It's clear. It's crystal clear.
But the nice thing too is Schlitz has a huge history in Chicago too.
100%.
Yeah. And it's funny because I do this to my wife all the time when we're driving around. When you see the buildings that have like the Schlitz logo, like in there, like those are the old Tide houses.
Yeah.
And then every time I see the Tide houses, I explain what a Tide house is to her, just because I was like, it's a fact that I know, and I enjoy telling that story all over and over
It was
again.
like the big days coming off of on the Kennedy. They had it years and years ago, going northbound. Used to come from the old neighborhood of Wood Street and Division and stuff, and pick up the Kennedy and going home, and there would be a big Schlitz sign.
Cool. That's actually one of the bar signs. If I had a bar sign here for my basement, a Schlitz sign is kind of one that I want, or High Life, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, and I like the places that take care of the Schlitz stuff, like on the buildings. I think it might be Schuba's on Belmont and like Southport.
I think you're right.
That was an old Tide house, and you could tell because it's in the brick. Like that's an old Tide house. The map room is an old Tide house. They've got all that stuff, and then there's a plethora of them on like the south side. So
you were talking about about the brick.
Yeah, so like it's in the facade.
Yes.
Yeah. So
like that. That was one that was in the old neighborhood. I didn't get a chance to purchase it. They didn't have it at the one particular store. It was called Drury's Lager.
That was the beer that I said that we didn't get when I was mentioning Schlitz. Yeah, that was when Jeff had mentioned that.
They had a big. It was right next to the old St. Stephen's Church in the apartment building that was adjacent to it, and the whole side of the building was their whole logo.
That's awesome, my wife.
It was their whole logo.
Oh yeah, yeah. So and like a quick thing about.
That's still my wife. My wife is handling the hose here. Sorry.
I didn't realize you had mice here.
It also sounded shady.
But I was going to say a quick thing about like the Tide houses, since I mentioned it a couple times, just kind of going back into history for like if we have listeners that don't know what those are. Basically the Tide houses were bars that were fully operated and funded by the breweries. So, for example, back in the early 1900s, I wanted to open a bar, and I wanted to get product. I would go out to a brewery and say, "Hey, like I need product," and they say, "Okay, we'll give you all of our product." They would come in and do the tap handles. They would set everything up for them, basically build out their entire bar. But they said, "You're a Schlitz bar," and they would get those logos put into the brick and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And that they would just run and like solely be selling Schlitz. And
I wonder. Sorry, not to cut you off, but I wonder how many buildings have been connected. Where buildings built on top of a building next door. That some of those Tide houses maybe are still covered up because I don't know where all of them at.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know if there was like a map of where a lot of these places were.
Sounds like we've got another episode on our hands, Brandon.
Dun dun dun.
I'll throw in some music.
You could do that.
Yeah.
Old neighborhood, Wood Street and Division, go south, Augusta Boulevard, going east and west and stuff like that. It's all Polish and Ukrainian and everything else. And you go further south and,
Yeah, it would be cool to... What always fascinated me, too, and again, and I equate this to, the quote-unquote old man beer, like Schlitz and Old Style and all that stuff, is like the corner neighborhood bars. And not like the corner of, Irving and Central or something like that. It's like it's literally tucked into a neighborhood.
Sure. It's a neighborhood building, corner bar,
and like literally it's a bar.
I forgot what article that I saw, but it was something about the Old Style signs being how it's very iconic in Chicago, and I mean it's a Chicago beer, but that there's a few places in Wisconsin that have there's one or two bars that actually have the Old Style sign. Up in Wisconsin, but that's what I remember growing up and going to bars with my dad when I couldn't actually be in a bar, but they let me in there.
But in a lot of those bars, those are the bars
that's Chicago. I mean,
those were the bars that you grew up that you didn't know had a name.
Yeah.
It was just
the old style bar. Yeah.
Actually, they were just family bars, really.
And they just had the Old Style sign out front.
Just the guys out.
Yeah.
After work and stuff, it would be the whole family.
Well, that kind of goes back to
stuff like that.
The last episode we did with when Gus was talking about how there was those bars that like Fishman's originally was places that opened at 7 a.m. and those guys were coming in and people that were working those shifts. I'm sure those were. I mean, that was a family bar, and I'm sure the other family bars were the same way. That kind of just operated the same way of being open at like 7 a.m. and having those guys come in that are getting off work, policemen, firemen, or whoever, or working in a hospital or anything like that. Yeah, it kind of all goes back
Totally.
to them.
And my other thought too was
I'm
like,
rambling,
if that was
yeah.
kind of in any way connected to the whole like Tide House thing.
Yeah.
You know,
I
like,
think so. I mean,
you know, like because in
God
those
damn it, Jeff, I gave you a coaster for a reason.
in a lot of those places, old style was the predominant beer. Like that's where you would go
Yeah.
to get your old style. It didn't work the same way because they carried other styles too, but
Right.
it was kind of the
Not
same.
necessarily styles, but it was other brands.
And ironically, that we're talking about this, Jeff is drinking out of a old style glass.
As am I. I'm sorry. Like I said, I did not give you the old style glass. I forgot.
It's all good.
I feel like I got these from my father-in-law. That these were old style glasses that he had that he was no longer using, and I ended up with them. So sorry, Mike, if that's the truth. So Schlitz was the first beer. We're gonna move straight on to hams. I've had we had the conversation about hams with the Pale Ale episode, didn't we? With Kevin.
I believe so.
I have a fondness. Here we go. Of hams. That I didn't realize that I didn't have hams when I was younger. It was PBR and old style. And as I got older, oh yeah, that's a good pour sound. Oh, all over my table. As I got older, I discovered hams and found out that hams was kind of like an old style type beer. At least that's what I equated it to. So I don't know the history of hams. Do you guys have a history of hams at all? Or a recollection at least of your
Yes, I
experience
was
with
weaned on hams.
Holy shit, it looks like
Yeah.
water in your glass, Brandon.
It does.
It's super light.
It's a nice
oh my
reflection.
god. Yeah. But again, it's and I'm sure most people know these beers, but if you don't, they're all lagers. They're all pretty much when someone says, "Hey, give me a beer," it's a yellow fizzy beer. But they all have their own different flavors as far as lagers go, but they're pretty much made the same way. Either one of you, what was your? You said you were what, weaned on hams? Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
all
No.
the uncles, fathers, uncles,
Everybody drink hams.
things like that. That's what they started with. They started with hams, and then he switched to old style, and then he went to, I don't know what they went to after that. I was getting on my own terms.
I don't care what you guys are drinking anymore.
Yeah.
It's my stuff.
This stuff is not for me. The old guys are drinking it, so I
Gotta
gotta
get my
have
own.
something
Gotta get
different.
my own shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think I ever, starting drinking beer, I never really had hams. I knew of it, and
I thought it was gone. I thought it was kind of like a fossil beer. I have so much
exactly.
on this.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that it was like one of those beers that you thought kind of like went to the wayside and like wasn't around anymore. And then,
This is
Schlitz was the beer that was they redid the recipe, correct? Mm-hmm. Not hams. Schlitz they redid the recipe, and didn't they end up going back to the original? Sorry, that's something I probably
I think
should-
so.
Yeah.
That sounds correct.
If anybody knows that, go ahead and send us a message.
Yeah.
Schlitz changed the recipe, and I think they went back. And like I said, if anybody knows it, go ahead and let us know. But hams has pretty much been the same thing. But I don't remember seeing hams as a kid.
really.
So I was born Brandon and I were both born in the early 80s.
Well, again,
They were one of the first beers to have an animated advertisement.
What was it? Was it just a cartoon of?
Yeah, it was animated.
Was it like the
It was
Flintstones
a-
selling Winston cigarettes?
No,
'Cause I
it
remember
was.
that.
It was.
wait, that was a thing?
Yes.
Oh, dude, look it up on YouTube. That to me, that's one of the most famous things where it was
Wilma. How about another Winston?
like, "Hey, Bond, oh, it's really good that the girls are cutting the lawn. Let's have a Winston." That's my Fred Flintstone,
Oh,
by the
my
way.
God.
That was the Ham's little catch tune. From the land of sky blue waters, waters, from the land of sky blues, comes a beer refreshing hams.
That's a great jingle. You know what? And when we're done talking, I think at some point when I go back to edit this, I will probably end the episode with the hams little jingle there because I don't know if
It was a
I don't know
beer.
if it's I don't know if it's a copyright thing if I use that anymore. I think it's free. What do you call that when something is no longer copyright protected? Free Mason. No. Anyway. I gotta say, hams is refreshing, and the last time we spoke about it, my cousin Kevin was on. We did a pale ale episode, and we talked about some of the beers we had. And my cousin Justin brought a 24 pack or 30 pack to a family party, and we got rid of it so easy. It's one of those beers that's like, I think it's 4% alcohol. It's kind of one of those beers that you don't really have to think about. You know, it's just it's a day drinking beer.
It's a beer to be refreshed. That's it.
If you're mowing the lawn, you want a beer afterwards. Hamm's is the beer you want. That's pretty much only my experience with Hamm's. Huh. But I like it.
But you don't really mow the lawn. Your wife does all that.
I'm going to edit that out of this. It's not by choice. Laura enjoys mowing the lawn. And also, Jeff, I mowed the lawn last time.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And I mowed your lawn. You're welcome.
Yes, I might have said thank you once.
Once. So right now, I know maybe we don't have to rank them, but as of right now, if I had to choose between the two, I'm going to say Hamm's over Schlitz.
Nah, I'm going to go Schlitz over Hamm's.
Brandon, you got a choice on this? Take another sip. Then let us know.
Schlitz over Hamm's.
Yeah.
I think there's more flavor in Schlitz.
Uh-huh.
But I like I think Hamm's is more refreshing to me.
Okay.
I guess it'd be a more situational. Thank you.
You're allowed to have bad decisions.
Okay. I think it would depend on the situation. No, I take that back. I would just see Hamm's over Schlitz any day. Any day. Go to hell, Schlitz. Hamm's is the winner right now with me.
I don't think so.
For me, it is.
Well, it's 2-1 right now.
2-1. So you guys have your own opinions.
You're throwing out Chicago history right there, man. Yeah. Hamm's is. I just looked it up because I was curious.
Yeah, I saw you. That's what you're doing.
It's a St. Paul-based beer.
St. Paul, Minnesota. St.
Yes.
Paul, Minnesota.
Hence the beer with the bear in the woods.
Yeah, well, I'll take this.
I
don't know what they're doing in Minnesota.
So I once I saw that, I quickly, something light bulb went off in my head. The company that I work for, the building, our office in St. Paul is in the Hamm's building.
Really?
So I Googled that real quick to see what it is. And I think it may just be named after them. It had nothing to do with the actual brewery. It was just kind of like named for them. But I was like, that's kind of an interesting tie-in. And it's an awesome building. The elevators suck, but it's an awesome building.
Those damn elevators.
I'll go back to Schlitz. We used to go to a place in Wisconsin off to Dells, Lake Delton and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
A little cabin. And there was a family over there. Everyone would meet on the beach at nighttime and stuff. And there was a family, uncles and brothers and stuff like that. They come out and they'd have their Schlitz because they worked out of Milwaukee. And they'd come out with these 16-ounce green label Schlitz.
Yeah, we talked about it.
It was like 8.5% alcohol.
Oh, wow.
That sounds like something I would want to try.
They says, no, we don't sell this too much at all. It's not on the market. They were just they brewed for the guys.
Yeah.
Or whatever it was.
Which is, it's funny, and I remember the kind of, you and I, you telling me that because PBR has just recently released both a light version and a higher alcohol version of just standard PBR. And the higher alcohol version is 6.5%, and it tastes like PBR. It just tastes like PBR.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, it was because, well, not really. I'm not a huge fan of PBR these days.
I'm saying if you were a fan of PBR and you were...
Well, and there's a light version too, so I haven't tried that, so I wouldn't mind trying that.
Question.
Yeah.
Schlitz Brewery. Is that from Laverne and Shirley? Yeah. I don't know.
Jeez. Well, so we've gotten through 2 beers. We've gotten through Hamm's and Schlitz. We've got a couple more left. We've got Old Style. We've got High Life.
Oh, it was Shots Brewery. Sorry.
Oh, Shots.
Oh,
yes.
very good. Very good.
Ooh, Shots. Yeah. I never had anything from them.
Which makes me think even more that it was Schlitz.
No, and then they just chose Shots.
So who do you aim to try?
I think what we'll do is...
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
I don't know. Where do you go next? Because those 3, I saved those 3 because those are the 3.
Or the Old Style.
The Old Style, Pabst, and High Life are the 3 beers that I specifically had in my 20s. When I was just like, I didn't buy Bud Light, I didn't buy Miller Lite, I didn't like those. And Pabst was, because hipsters started drinking it. I don't know if they started drinking it because my generation was drinking it, and it was a cheap beer, so hipsters were like, this is cool, let's start drinking this. Whatever, it's a cheap beer, I don't care if it's a shitty beer. I just didn't like the other beers. I did like those beers. But those beers are actually the ones that got me into beer and drinking beer, and then from there I went to Guinness, which is crazy, and then Bell's Oberon and shit like that. So I don't know. I feel like I'd like to go old style next, but I think before we go into old style, I think what I'd like to do is what we call a little break.
Go for it.
From the land of sky blue waters, from the land of pine's lofty blossoms, comes the beer refreshing.
Pour an ice-cold Hams and treat yourself to the premium beer from the land of sky blue waters. Great tasting Hams.
Hands the beer refreshing, hands the beer refreshing, hands.
And we're back! You son of a
Again!
bitch.
I'm gonna fucking steal it from you one day. We're back. We're here with Jeffrey. Hi, Jeff.
Tony?
Yeah, Jeff. And we're talking about old man beers, or where it all started.
And now we've moved on to the old style.
Old style, which has a rich Chicago history. As we were talking about before, a lot of the bars in the area in Chicago have at one point, a lot of the local bars, when we say neighborhood bars, they're not on the main streets, but they are on a main street and maybe a side street. Not so much a main intersection of a street, but you can still find them around Chicago, the giant old style signs, and that's kind of what we were talking about, Brandon. That's what we thought bars were called, basically. They're old style. That's the old style bar.
Makes sense.
Old style was the first beer. There's a picture somewhere, and maybe I can find it. That'd be a funny picture for this episode. If I can get my mom to scan the picture of it, my dad, as a baby, very young, maybe not a baby, has an old style can in his hand, and maybe even letting me try it. So, thanks, Dad.
Cool.
Old style is officially the first beer I ever tried in my life. And I think everybody, as far as listeners here in Chicago,
Did you love it?
I do like. As a baby, I probably didn't like it. As an adult, when I was in my 20s, I did like Old Style. I did think it was a cheap beer. I didn't necessarily go out of my way to buy it, but
Let's not say cheap. Let's say inexpensive.
You're right.
It sounds
Inexpensive.
a little bit
Yeah.
better.
Correct.
Beer is not
definitely inexpensive.
Beer is not cheap to make. I'm just taking a sip of it right now because we're drinking out of this nice 24-ounce cans, which this might be the cheapest beer purchasing episode we've ever had. I bought two 24-ounce cans and one 6-pack of the little guys of High Life. I spent $8.18 tonight to get these beers. Old Style reminds me a lot of High Life as far as the sweetness goes. Out of the 3 beers we've had so far with Hams, Schlitz, and now Old Style, this is the sweetest of the 3.
I would agree.
Concur.
What is your, Jeff, what is your experience with Old Style? The same as everybody else in Chicago?
Pretty much so, yes.
It was
But
the...
Everyone changed
Yeah.
as whatever happens.
Yeah.
It just goes down in 5, 6, 7, 8 years. You get tired of this one and you something else and stuff. Like I said, they started with Schlitz in the family, then Hams, and then Old Style.
So we're actually moving chronologically. I like that. I to me, Old Style, as we were just talking about before we came back from the break, Old Style was the one beer that you would get at Wrigley. And I feel like when I would go to Cubs games, when the Cubs were not doing so great, and you get tickets for cheap, or someone had tickets and you'd go with them, that's what you were drinking. And they were like, what? At that time, like a 16-ounce cups
$4,
were like, $4
maybe.
or $5. Maybe it was expensive then, but man, I still wish you can get like a $4 or $5 beer.
I remember when it was $1.25.
Your age is showing, Jeff.
Yes, I know.
Jeff is 40, and Brandon and I are in our late 30s. So Jeff is around our age, but he remembers it when it was much cheaper.
You're really good. You bullshitter.
But yeah, old style is good to me. I mean, Brandon, you've already finished yours. I mean, it's an easy drinking beer.
Yeah, and the funny thing about Old Style is like I don't know if I really have a story about Old Style. I mean I know I have a vivid memory of like it was either that or like Miller Lite that, you know, when my family had parties or like, you know, we were boating or whatever, there was Old Style or Miller Lite. And like I still think back in my head, I don't remember what beer it was, but I do remember there was a time like back in the day my dad smoked cigars, he would smoke them in the house. And he had gone to the bathroom. And I was like 6 or 7 years old, maybe younger, I don't know. And he had gone to the bathroom, and I grabbed his beer, and I grabbed his cigar that he had on the ashtray. And I walked into the kitchen, and my mom was in there, and I like took a sip of the beer, and a swig of the cigar, and I said, "Hey, look, I'm Dad." And they're like, my mom's like, "What?"
It's funny that it's funny that you started that story with, I don't have any memories of Old Style. That's a pretty good memory.
Well, I don't remember if it was Old Style or Miller Lite.
Yeah.
So it was one of those beers, and I just I remember that story.
Old Style or Miller Lite.
All right, trick question. What kind of cigar was it?
I have no idea.
That's good. Well, it's funny that you said Miller Lite because I saw, when I was grabbing beer today for this episode, I saw MGD, I saw Miller Lite, I saw Bud Light, and I was like, you know, is this did I want to grab these beers as well? But I figured, I mean, those beers, I think that's another episode. I think like when you do Bud Light, when you do Miller Light, you do MGD,
there's so many.
Budweiser.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, and Jeff, maybe you come back for that one. I think. Well, and actually, my buddy Chris Micah, who loves Pilsners, I wanted to have him on because I do have the beer I named after you, Jeff. Shut up, Jeff.
Thank you.
Which is, you're welcome. That is something I said to Jeff one day in my yard. I told him to shut up. I now have said it to him regularly. Told him
Got the whole goddamn neighbors saying that.
Your family too, which I think is that's a win for me. But I named a lager after him because
Don't take credit for that because they were saying that way long before you were.
I'm just saying, you know, I mean, it's they thought it was funny maybe because that a neighbor of yours decided to say it to you as well.
Yeah. How did they know that?
Shut up. Everyone's saying it behind your back otherwise. But I named the beer Shut Up Jeff, and it was my first real lager. And I liked it. But what I was saying is that maybe when we do like a real Pilsner episode, my friend Chris, who has a Arancini food truck, he wanted to come on and talk about Pilsners because he didn't want to come on. I asked him to come on to it, and I asked him what his favorite beer style was, and he said Pilsners. So maybe that'll be the time we kind of dig into those beers like Pilsner, Urquell, and what is it? Is St. Pauli Girl still a beer?
I think so.
Yes.
When was the last time you saw a St. Pauli Girl? I'm not looking for it, but I can't remember seeing St. Pauli Girl. That's a Pilsner as well. So maybe that'll be the time we do that. I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic here, but I just want Chris to bring Arancinis. Chris, if you actually listen to the show and you're listening to this episode right now, we want you to bring the Arancinis, and Jeff will come back and be on the show for it. We will pair Pilsners with Arancinis. That sounds pretty good, right?
Go for it.
Right,
I'm okay
thanks.
with that.
Anyway, so Old Style. Back to Old Style. I mean, I don't know how much more needs to be said about it, other than, I mean, it is the Chicago beer. It is the staple of our city, and if you were born and raised in Chicago, you have had Old Style at one point in your life. And I don't, as far as what did we say? Not a cheap beer, but an expensive beer. It's pretty tasty. It's up there with the beers. Now, if we're going back to what I had said before, between Hams, Schlitz, and Old Style, I still sit with Hams. Where are you guys on this?
I still like the Schlitz.
Schlitz still
I'm
the guy,
surprised.
Yeah.
It's been so long since I tried these.
I'm torn between the Schlitz and the Old Style, actually.
I can see that. There's a lot of good flavor in the Old Style, actually.
And I think it might be more like a, you know, drawn towards the old style because
It's
it's more familiar, and I've had that more
I
often.
think there's a little bit more carbonation inside the old style than the Schlitz.
I feel like there's a sweetness to the old style that I really like. That, like I said before, it kind of reminds you of High Life, and when we get to High Life, we'll see if that still ranks. I mean, High Life is my go-to inexpensive beer. That is, I enjoy High Life immensely, and we'll see if that's the beer that reigns supreme this evening. But the next beer that we're going to go into is the ever so popular hipster beer. It is a beer that I have bought a Dirty 30 of many times. It is a beer in my 20s I drank a lot of. It is the beer that I know for sure has won an award because it has a blue ribbon on it.
We need a drum roll.
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Dun, dun, dun.
Who saw that coming? So
You said it had a blue ribbon.
I don't know. And the funny thing is, and people will see this when I take the picture, what is up with this label? What's going on there?
Is it just a bad can, or like...
I have the exact same can.
Yeah.
It is
I
just,
bought one at
I thought something was wrong
one
with my
place,
can.
and you bought one
Yeah,
at the
for the
other
separate place. It's
Yeah.
just what it looks like right
Yeah.
now, and I don't know what it is. I'll take a better look at it, but it is weird because it used to say Pabst Blue Ribbon in white, and now it's just kind of like light blue schmear.
Schmear.
It's a schmear. If you're in New York and you're having a bagel, it's a schmear. All right, so I'm going to pour these up now. Now, Jeff, what is your history of Pabst Blue Ribbon? Were you a Pabst Blue Ribbon guy at all at any point?
No.
Never.
Never had a Pabst.
All right,
Blue
next
Ribbon
beer.
Wait, hold on.
Never had one.
Hold the goddamn phone. You've never had a Pabst ever in your life.
Never.
Holy shit, that
No, it's the truth.
is blowing my mind right now because I thought for sure.
No.
This is one of the
it can't
ones-
be
Yeah, for a
because,
40-year-old man to never have
Yeah,
Pabst
what
Blue
kind
Ribbon.
of 40-year-old man has never had Pabst Blue Ribbon before?
God, I don't know, but it wasn't in the family, and it wasn't in the taste buds of the system.
Look at that. I mean, that is like crystal.
And you can't.
Well, ours look
Actually-
the same. Ours will look the same because we have the same glass. But Brandon's yours looks a little more yellow because you're a little more in there. You have a more close glass. I don't know how to say it. Anyways, so Pabst. Let's take a sip of this real quick.
I get that same sweetness of the old style a little bit.
Okay. I get metal. Like, I get lager and everything. It's I don't like it. This is probably my least favorite of the 4 that we've had so far.
I concur because it's just a little bit. I don't know. It's got a.
It's got a bite to it.
Yeah.
And it's not like a
Yes.
bite, like a hot bite. When you say
Jeff
it's a
was
hot-
trained to hate PBR, apparently. So
never had it, never in my family, they can go to hell for all I care.
Doesn't
Yeah,
exist.
I mean, would I drink it? Yes, it's
Yeah.
But even when I go places, like it's not the first thing that I look for. If there's no craft beer,
Yeah.
and it's if my choices were PBR, Old Style, Miller Lite, Coors Light, like out of those selections, like right now, I'd probably go to the Coors Light.
Yeah,
or something
100%.
like that.
Which was, again, another beer that I was thinking about grabbing. I was hoping that they had a regular Coors Banquet. They had the 6-packs of that, and I was like, kind of want to get that just to have it. And they also had Leinenkugel's regular lager. But again, I think we'll save that for another time. But yeah, out of all those options that you said, I think I would probably go with Coors Light. The only reason why I drank so many Pabsts is that at Christina's place, the bar that I went to, it was $2 PBRs or $2 Guinness. And after having so many $2 PBRs, I was like, well, my other option is a Guinness. I'm going to try that. And that's where my enjoyment of stouts came to be, because I had a Guinness, and I was like, oh, this is really good.
I remember my first Guinness
What was your first Guinness?
at the Bird in Hand in England.
Jesus
London.
Christ, way to trump my story, Jeff. You know what? You're never allowed on the show again. No. So you're in England, and that was the first time you tried Guinness?
A friend of ours, married a Londoner, he was stationed at the U.S. Naval Base as one of the security guards and things like that he worked for. He was in the Marine Corps. And that was the name of the place. And he said, you got to try Guinness. Never had Guinness. He says, yeah. Give you a nice pint. Actually, a pint in London was 17 ounces.
Oh yeah, 16. Because isn't it technically 16.9? I think.
Something like that. And he says, yeah, if you pour it, you can put your initial right in the top of it with the foam and drink it, and it'll still be there when you finish.
Guinness, Brandon and I discussed Guinness on our St. Patrick's Day episode, and we did a couple of Irish beers. Guinness wasn't our favorite of the day, but we both have a fond. Actually, I still have a couple of Guinness left. Guinness is a fine beer. I love Guinness.
Sure.
Guinness is, and it's funny when people tell me that they don't like stouts, and then when they think of Guinness, they think of it drinking like a loaf of bread. When it's one of the when it's like one of the lightest beers that is commercially available, without it being called a light beer.
Actually, during the war, that used to be a recuperation for the mothers after the birth of a child.
Having Guinness?
Because it contains so much iron.
That's funny because we were joking around about the old sayings of Guinness, how like, Guinness is healthy for you, and I was like, nope. That was just that's a sales pitch.
Nope.
But there's a whole bunch. Like I love all the old Guinness advertisements. Those are kind of some posters I wouldn't mind having down here in the old basement.
But we're talking about Pabst.
We're talking about Pabst. Right, the Blue Ribbon winner. This is at the bottom of the list. If I had to choose it, I think it would go Pabst, Schlitz, old style hams right now for me. That's where I'm at. I think you guys agree as far as where Pabst is probably down at the bottom, or would you put it over hams?
I put it below hams.
Below hams.
Sorry.
What about you?
Yeah, probably.
It does.
I'm going in order that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Schlitz. I was surprised that I liked it better than hams. And then the old style, and now the Pabst.
Yeah, I think for the last Super Bowl, my dad, I brought him. That's where the story's going. I brought him over to my friend Vito's house for the Super Bowl, and I was like, Dad, grab some beer that you want. I'm gonna grab something that I want. I grabbed a 6-pack of something pretty good. I think I grabbed a Revolution Straight Jacket that, or something that you and I shared, Brandon, because you showed up. Yep. And my dad comes back to me with a 30-pack of Schlitz, or not Schlitz. He came back with a 30-pack of PBR because it was like $13 and you got a free thing of peanuts if you bought it.
Oh yeah, that's a great deal.
I saw the peanuts outside.
I still got the peanuts.
I know. And that's what I drank with my dad. And the best part about it was being someone who drinks craft beer and all these other like maybe higher alcohol beers. I thought I was gonna have a terrible hangover from drinking PBR because of the sweetness from it, and I didn't. It was I was fine. It was pretty good. I wouldn't kick PBR out of the bed, as the saying goes. Right, that's the saying. Okay.
Kick it out of bed for eating crackers.
Yeah, thank you. I missed that part. Yeah, wouldn't kick PBR out of the bed for eating crackers.
Yes, without the cheese.
Hams and cheese.
But if I back to it again,
pork and beans.
But if I had to, jeez, if I had to choose, yeah, Pabst wouldn't be up there. With these guys I'd choose over it. All right, so that brings us to one more beer.
Well, it's your favorite.
It is my favorite. And you
kind
brought
of bias here.
But you brought the big can, but I feel like it's appropriate. We're not going to use glasses for this because I got the little bottles. I'm gonna go ahead and finish that. I'm gonna take this here, move my glass over here. I'm gonna bust out the little bottles. If you don't want to take it back to your house, I'll keep it, Jeff. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very excited about having
Like I said, I have to get rid of all that beer out of the fridge in the garage because it's taking up quality cooler space.
Well, the good news is I'll keep it in my fridge, and whenever you want, I'm going to get Jeff, do you want a beer? Because I've got all the beers from the episode.
Yes.
It'll be in my fridge. So I've got these adorable little...
What size are these? 6 ounces?
I don't know. Let's see.
I think it's 8.
Well, I think it's...
Or it could be 6.
I'm not sure. It is a twist off, which is great, though.
Say.
It does. Ooh. I will say this. Do not smell it.
7.
7 ounces. Do not
7
smell
ounces.
it from the bottle. Don't smell it. It does not smell great from the bottle. But we are going to drink right now what I feel like is... I know Miller is... Just Miller beers in general. When I think of Wisconsin, this is what I think of. Because when I go camping in Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. You can use that coaster there. I go camping in Wisconsin. And yeah, I need the fucking coasters to be used, Jeff. Otherwise, I edit this out.
You got a lot of that. You got to edit out anyway.
Well, when Eric and Emil are on the show, Eric is always
That's a lot
putting it
better
down.
than farts.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, we get some. Actually, we haven't.
Actually, you've been pretty good tonight.
We have. Thanks. Well, that's because I know we're recording. I don't think we've had a single fart on an episode yet, which is great.
Yeah, you guys outside there, you don't want to be around when you stop recording.
Not at all.
Because I'm getting the hell out of here, too.
So,
When I think, oh, sorry. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, I know we're cutting into the High Life, but the one interesting fact that we did not mention about PBR for folks that may not know is that Pabst Blue Ribbon used to just be called Pabst.
Yes.
And the reason it got the name Pabst Blue Ribbon was because they had a beer competition at the 1873 World's Fair in Chicago.
That's where I started kind of touching on that, but I
And
get the history on it.
They got the blue ribbon, so they figured, well, why not put Blue Ribbon on the name? And they wrote it
Do you think that was
over 100 years
Do
later.
you think it was like a BJCP competition too?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
But there's interesting stories about that too. That like if you go back and like there's a history of beer in Chicago.
It was
that I read.
rigged.
Yes, it was rigged.
Really?
Yes.
I
What?
vaguely remember reading
Yeah.
some historical
Mother dick.
crap about that.
Like I don't remember who all the other competitors were in that. I'm sure you can look it up. But yeah, there was people threw money in to make Pabst the winner, and they did.
Mm-hmm.
And then Pabst was like, "All right, well, we're just gonna put the blue ribbon on our marketing," and they ran from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good on them, I guess.
See, and all this corruption in Chicago started
With Pabst.
5 decades ago. It was 110.
Welcome
years
to
ago.
Chicago, everybody. What I originally was saying was that Miller is obviously from Wisconsin. Wisconsin being our northern neighbor that I love and cherish, and they're a big beer drinking state. When I think
Cheese.
of Wisconsin, yeah, there you go. When I think of Wisconsin, I actually do, other than Spotted Cow and New Glarus, shout out to your daughter, I think of High Life, because when I would go camping in Wisconsin and you wanted a cheap beer, I wasn't reaching for PBR, I wasn't reaching for old style, there was High Life. High Life was my dirty 30. And growing up, when I lived with Kevin and I had an apartment together, when we got beer, we would get a 30 pack of High Life because we thought it tasted good and we didn't feel like shit the next day. And we had beer left over. And High Life has still, even like I said, don't smell the bottle.
No.
It doesn't smell great. I feel like if it was in glass, we'd probably smell a little better. But I will say, drinking this still reigns supreme over all the beers. For me, this reigns supreme over everything we drank tonight. It has a better sweetness than old style. It's not very sweet, but there's a sweetness to it. Yeah, that sounds stupid. It's not as sweet as old style. It's smooth as all the other beers. And if I had to copy a recipe to make of a lager that I want on tap, it is Miller High Life, you beautiful 7-ounce cute little bottle.
Well, here's got sent to my uncle Richie Poblowski / name Juju Babe.
It's a good burp.
We'd have old style hams at the bar. Give me the champagne of bottled beers.
There you
Give
go.
me a Miller High Life.
That is
He
the...
would always say it like that.
It is the champagne of beers for me. It is like... And when I say the champagne of beers, it is the champagne of all of these beers. There's just... I don't know what they do to brew this beer. It is my favorite as far as flavor goes. This drinkability goes. If all these beers were presented in front of me... I mean, I'm being redundant. But if all these beers were presented in front of me of... What do you want? I will go High Life. Over Chicago tradition, I will go High Life.
I would go probably because we have things at my brother's house, and he's a big fan.
So you'd go High Life?
Yeah, I think I'd go Schlitz. Surprising, and the High Life.
I'm not surprised, because
I'm
Schlitz
gonna
was
go
very good.
back-
Schlitz is very good.
I just haven't had it for a long time, and I forgot how
Good
much
it was?
No, the Schlitz.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah,
So you
like
go,
that.
would you go Schlitz, High Life, then what?
Schlitz, High Life, hams, Old Style, and Pabst.
Perhaps. Braden?
What
where do
about you, Braden?
Where do you land on this?
Ooh. High Life probably would be first.
Wow. Yeah.
Um,
I know it's 7 ounces, but I'm drinking this, and the fact that it's the last beer, we kind of sat on some of these other beers, and it's the last beer that we're trying, right? We don't have any other beers.
Yes.
yeah.
We all kind of seem to be going through it a little. I mean, we've had a lot of beer tonight, but we all kind of seem to keep sipping on it a little bit more than the other ones.
It's
Quicker.
an awesome beer.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, we've brewed and bought these, and
Yes, there's been
Really?
these exact bottles. Yeah, there was a brew day. I forget what it was for. A festival. It was for the Great Lakes Brew Fest. We were brewing a beer, and we said, "Hey," because sometimes, forewarning. During some of our brew days, it turns into kind of a shit show because we'll share a whole bunch of beers that we all enjoy drinking, and sometimes they're higher alcohol, or there's just a lot of them, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh god, we forgot to add hops here, we forgot to do this there. You actually, Jeff,
Yes,
you've seen
yes,
that. You've
yes.
seen that as being here. And those are the beers that it's like there's nothing to like. I'm just brewing it to have it, and then it's like, well, we missed that. Well, we'll figure it out. When we did it for the Great Lakes Brew Fest last year, Mike and I grabbed the Fireman 16-ounce old style cans. There's like Chicago firefighters. There was axes on and everything. For some reason, Mike saved the cans after we drank
Really?
it. They're still at his mom's house. I don't know what he's doing with them. Yeah, Mike, I'm calling you out. I know you listen to the show. But we also bought these little 7-ounce bottles. And when I saw them again, I was like, oh man, I gotta get these. But these are perfect. I mean, this is actually the right size if you come home from work. You don't want to drink a beer, but you kind of want some beer. Come we got stuff to do, like, you know what? I'm cracking open one of these 7-ounce High Lifes. And then maybe before you go to bed, you're like, I'm going to have one more of these 7-ounce High Lifes. That's 14 ounces in a whole day. I can do that. I can do that, Laura.
that's responsible.
Thank you.
I remember the little bottles way back when I was telling you.
Of these? Or
No.
of just in general?
Another beer up in Wisconsin.
Which one?
Walter's Beer.
That sounds made up, Jeff.
Yeah, it's not. And the
We're going to have
bar-
to... Brandon, I'm going to need you to fact check
no,
that.
no. It was Walter's Beer, and they had
Keep talking.
the smaller beer called Little Wally's.
Oh, I was hoping they were going to call it Walt's beer.
No,
Well,
Little Wally's.
wait, not to cut you off, Brandon, do you know of the brewery that's making those small beers right now? There's
No.
someone making... fudge.
No, and I think I saw it recently. And
It's a
now-
Chicago brewery, and they're making small cans that are lagers, and it might be maybe based off what you're saying. But
No,
is
no,
that-
I remember because the whole, just back of the woods by the lake, and families are there and stuff like that, and that was the only tavern on the lake, and he served Walter's Beer. But that was the first time I heard of the name Leinenkugels.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
talking early 60s.
I could do a whole episode on all the Leinenkugel beers, because I used to really enjoy Leinenkugel beers, and I never had regular Leinenkugel. I actually, and when I say
I
actually,
think
because
the
it makes,
regular Leinenkugel is better than anything that they
and I've
have.
never had it before. I like all of their summer shit.
Yeah.
And when I say summer shit, I don't mean it's shit beer, but like
Yeah.
it's kind of just, you know, that's gonna make them money. It's a fruity beer. All the shandies are
Walter's
pretty
beer.
good. There it is. Brandon pulled up the picture of Walter's beer. It's a case of Walter's beer.
Holy poop.
Yeah. Wow,
currently
you said
for
holy
sale
poop.
on eBay.
Way to not swear on the episode, Jeff. I
I
appreciate
said
it.
holy poop.
I know, and I fucking said that was great that you didn't swear on the episode.
I fucking appreciate you.
Okay, shut up, Jeff. I got it in. Leinenkugels' whole line of all the shandies and all the stuff that, like, when they do the special ones during Christmas and things like that, I actually really do enjoy them. Laura, I know, enjoys all of the shandies, all the different flavors. When this fall comes around, they start doing those, and that's kind of what I think reignited Leinenkugel to be a thing. And now they've brought back the regular Leinenkugel lager. So I think when we do the real lager show or Pilsner show, when we bring Chris on with his rice balls, I think Chris, please bring us some.
So what are you
arancini's.
thinking about the concessions here? You're gonna go with the Miller High Life?
I'm going
there,
with High
Tony?
Life. I'm going
What
High
about you,
Life.
Brandon?
I'm going High Life.
You're gonna go. I'm sorry.
Sticking
I'm
with Schlitz?
surprised. I'm gonna stick with the Schlitz.
I don't,
Unbelievable.
and I don't
can't
blame
believe
you.
it.
As much as I put hams over Schlitz, As much as I put... Brandon did something
Say that
funny.
again?
As much as I put hams
Don't
over
say it again.
Schlitz, as much as I put hams over Schlitz, I'm not surprised. I think it's just Schlitz is a very good beer when we're talking about these beers. I would drink any of these. I mean, we're talking about, you know, if you had to, like, you're on a desert island, which one are you going to choose? I would choose any of these, but High Life is the winner for me. I would go High Life, hams, Schlitz, Old Style, PBR. And I actually have a whole hard time putting Old Style where it is. I don't put Old Style down there so low because I don't think it's as good. But I just feel like PBR actually is the worst of all these, and all these I would drink regardless. PBR I can put on the back burner.
Agree.
Yeah, and I think that's why we never buy PBR for anything that we
Yes.
use.
Nothing. No, yeah, you're right.
It's never like our brew beer or whatever. Like,
So
and
why is
I
it-
would get Old Style
So
over
why
that.
is it everywhere?
Hipsters.
I mean,
cool
just-
kids. Cool hipsters. When I say hipsters...
And it's the price point
Yeah,
too
it
that
is, it
most
is.
of the
Yeah.
places sell it at. It's
It's
you know,
not cool.
inexpensive.
And even though High Life is as inexpensive as PBR, you're still buying from the man because it's Miller.
Yeah.
But it's fucking delicious.
Yeah.
We've all
I'll
pretty
turn
much
back the
knocked
clock
out his-
and you guys get out there and have yourself another Schlitz.
I wish we just would have ended the episode right there.
Could have. I can sit stop.
I might edit it so, and it's gonna come back around where that's what he says. Where are we on time?
56 minutes.
Perfect. That's an episode. Jeff, that's an editor's note, by the way.
Yeah, he's got to go home and edit all this shit.
Happy 10th episode.
Yeah. You know what? You're right. Happy 10th episode, Brandon. I'm gonna, Brandon's going back for the P.
I need something for cheers. I thought you were going to cheers me. That's why I was like,
Yeah, but I just slammed that. Hold on. Yeah, old pile. There's some old pile left. Is what the kids would call it, old pile.
Old pile.
You still have some of your...
I have mine.
Okay, Brandon, cheers for 10 episodes, which
All right.
is not a huge deal, but for us, you and I, with our lives, that's a huge deal.
it is.
Hey,
Thanks,
good luck to you
Jeff.
guys.
And Jeff, thank
Nice
you.
to see you.
Jeff, thank you for coming on to the show. I would say finally, except I've never invited you until now. But you were a part. You were finally coming on to the show. I appreciate you coming on. I can see you coming on for. I have ideas for you coming on for more shows. But everybody else, thank you for listening. For these 10 episodes, it's been a cool trip so far.
And we appreciate it
Yeah,
immensely.
and I think you know what, Jeff? I think every 10 episodes you just come back on.
There you go.
What do you think about that?
Fantastic idea.
You'll be on in December then.
It's fucking cold out there.
You might
We're
come
not
on.
going in the garage.
That would be the garage episode, yeah.
You might come on before that. But I'm saying, I think on every 10th episode, it's you're on and maybe other people come on too. But I think you're.
Yeah, they can always take me every 10 times.
I see you every fucking day. God damn it. Well, everybody, thank you. Brandon, cheers, man, for
Cheers, man.
10 episodes.
been
Thanks for
awesome.
thanks for all the hard work that you do for this, and thanks everybody for listening. And this was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to all the other stuff that we do. Hey, actually, when people hear this, we're already done with the Mount Vernon Brewfest.
Yes.
So we're gonna. I think we have a recap. I think
Yeah, I
maybe
think-
we'll have some recordings from it. I don't know yet.
I don't know, but I think
We'll see.
episode 11 will be a recap from that episode.
It'll be a recap, and eventually, and maybe after that, we will finally go. Not finally, but we'll go back to Fishman's to do part 2. Everybody,
Yeah.
so don't worry. Fishman's episode part 2 will be on soon. I lied about having Mike and Emil on for the IPA. I said they're going to be on for sure. And the Shaggy Tail, I'm like, we're going to do it. We said it here. They're going to be on. That didn't happen.
Yeah, things happen, life,
Mike's also happy with that, though. He didn't want to be on the show. But Mike,
Yeah.
you'll be on. You will be on an episode. All right, guys. Well, Jeff, cheers. Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers your empty bottle. And shut up.
Sounds good.
It does sound good. Adios.
Thank you.
Music for this episode and all the other episodes have been provided by Fluid Minds. You can find all their music at fluidmindsmusic.com. You can also find them on iTunes and Spotify and anywhere else music is streaming. Big thanks to everybody who is listening to us for these past 10 episodes. Looking forward to the next 10 episodes and all the other guests and things that we're talking about. Remember to like, subscribe, and give a review for these shows. Cheers.